Have you ever wondered why a man distances himself from a woman, even when it's clear that there is still love? Often, people believe that distancing only happens when the feeling is gone. But the truth is that this is not real. A man can continue to love intensely and still feel the need to distance himself. And this distancing has nothing to do with a lack of love, but rather with something much deeper. What I'm going to reveal to you today is that there are only two main reasons why a man distances himself. Not 10, not 5, not several, just 2. And if you can understand what they are, you'll realize that, in most cases, the problem isn't you, it isn't him, and it isn't the relationship itself. The problem lies in something we rarely see at first glance. Imagine the following. You are in a relationship where there is affection, passion is there, and intimacy has not been lost. Even so, you feel that he is becoming colder, more distant, less present. He starts not responding to messages with the same enthusiasm, avoids deep conversations, and gradually seems to be in another world. The first thing that crosses your mind is, he doesn't love me anymore. But in the vast majority of cases, that's not it. This is where the most common mistake begins, believing that a lack of closeness means a lack of love. This interpretation leads to insecurity, despair, and unnecessary fights. And the more you insist that he explain himself, the more he pulls away, creating a vicious cycle. What no one has told you is that behind this behavior, there is an emotional logic that most women never learn to decipher. Men don't pull away because they've stopped loving. They pull away because there's an internal conflict that forces them to distance themselves. This conflict can take 2 different forms, but it always boils down to one of these 2 fundamental reasons. And when you understand this, the way you view relationships changes forever. Many relationships end too soon simply because no one taught people to look beyond appearances. You may think that his silence is a sign of disinterest, when in reality, it is just a cry for help, a request for space, a desperate attempt to deal with emotions that he himself cannot put into words. And here's an important detail. Men have been taught from an early age to hide their weaknesses. Since childhood, they have heard phrases such as, swallow your tears, men don't complain, be strong, hang in there. This emotional training shapes the way they relate to others in adulthood. In other words, when a man is in conflict, instead of expressing his pain in words, he prefers to remain silent and withdraw. That's why it's so important to understand the root of this behavior. If you can see beyond the surface, you can save not only a relationship but also both of your self-esteem. Withdrawal is no longer seen as a threat and comes to be understood as a phase, as a sign that something needs to be adjusted before it's too late. In this video, you will discover the only 2 reasons why a man really pulls away, even when he loves you. Let's explore together the most hidden layers of the male mind, debunk myths, and reveal secrets that can completely transform the way you relate to others. If you've ever experienced the pain of seeing a man who said he loved you become cold overnight, you need to stay until the end. The answer you never got may be here, and I guarantee, when you understand these 2 reasons, everything will make sense, and you'll never see withdrawal the same way again. Let me tell you a story that may sound familiar. Imagine a woman named Anna. She has been in a relationship with Carlos for over 3 years. In the beginning, everything was lighthearted, affectionate messages at any time, unexpected surprises, weekends planned together. Anna felt special, loved, and secure, but suddenly she begins to notice small changes. Carlos, who used to be present, now takes hours to respond to a simple message. He doesn't disappear completely, but the intensity has dropped. In conversations, he seems distracted, as if his mind is elsewhere. When she tries to ask what's going on, he responds with short phrases. Everything's fine. I'm just tired. It's no big deal. Anna begins to feel anxious. Her heart races at the thought that he may be losing interest. And like anyone in her place, she starts to insist. She calls more often, sends messages demanding attention, tries to set up meetings to work things out. But the more she presses, the more distant he becomes, until there comes a point when Carlos simply asks for a break. It's painful because Anna feels that the love is still there. When they're together, she still sees affection in his gestures, still sees truth in his eyes. It's not as if he has stopped loving her, but rather as if he is fighting against something she cannot understand. And this situation doesn't only happen to Anna. How many times have you heard a friend, a sister, or even yourself say, I don't understand. He said he loved me, but then suddenly he pulled away. This is more common than you might think, and it happens for reasons that almost never have to do with a lack of love. Now, imagine another scene. Rodrigo and Camila started dating a little over a year ago. The relationship was intense, full of chemistry and passion. Camila believed she had finally found someone willing to build something solid. But little by little, Rodrigo began to close himself off. He still sought her out, still showed affection, but no longer talked about the future as he had before. When Camila tried to bring up conversations about plans, family, or marriage, he changed the subject, became restless, or made up excuses to end the conversation. Camila wondered, does he really love me? Is he only with me for convenience? But the truth is that Rodrigo did love her. What was happening had to do with an internal block that had nothing to do with his feelings for her. These stories show a pattern that many women know well. Male withdrawal almost never happens because the love has ended. The love may still be alive, but there is an invisible battle going on inside his mind. And when that battle begins, the natural reaction is to pull away. Perhaps you've been through this, noticing that he still holds your hand, but less firmly, that he still looks at you, but not with the same intensity, that he is still physically present, but emotionally seems distant. This is devastating because the mind begins to create stories. He must have someone else. He's tired of me. He never really loved me. And that's when the fights, mistrust, and feeling that everything is falling apart arise. But I want you to keep one thing in mind. Distancing is never random. It always follows a logic. Men don't pull away without a reason. They may not say it out loud. They may not be able to explain it even to themselves, but there is a reason. And that reason always falls into one of two categories that I will reveal throughout the video. For now, I want you to understand that this dynamic is not an isolated problem. It is not a lack of love, and it does not always mean the end. In fact, it is a natural phase that many relationships go through, but only those who know how to interpret it correctly survive. And it is precisely this lack of interpretation that destroys couples. When a woman interprets withdrawal as rejection, she reacts with despair. When a man feels he is being pressured, he reacts with more distance. And this cycle can end up turning a healthy relationship into an emotional battlefield. So, before talking directly about the two reasons, I want you to realize how important it is to learn to recognize the signs. Withdrawal is a symptom, not a sentence. It can be a harbinger of the end if misinterpreted, or it can be the beginning of a phase of growth if well understood. And here's the promise. When you know exactly what these two reasons are, you'll stop reacting with insecurity and start acting with clarity. And that's the first step in breaking the cycle of distance and truly reconnecting. It's time to reveal the first reason that makes a man pull away, even when he still loves deeply. And this reason is more common than you might think: emotional and mental overload. Men often don't know how to deal with the weight of responsibilities, demands, and their own insecurities. And when that weight becomes unbearable, the automatic reaction is to pull away, not because he has stopped loving you, but because he feels he can't be the version of himself he would like to be at that moment. Think about it. From an early age, society places the idea on men's shoulders that they need to be providers, strong, unbeatable. If he loses his job, faces financial difficulties, is stressed at work, or even begins to question his own abilities, it directly affects how he sees himself in the relationship. For him, it's not just a question of money or success. It's a question of personal value. And when a man feels that he is not at the level he would like to be, he prefers to walk away. He thinks, how am I going to take care of her if I can't even take care of myself right now? This silent thought destroys his confidence and creates distance. Let me give you a real example. Imagine Marcos, a man in love with Julia. They had plans to live together, to travel, to build a life together. But Marcos lost his job and spent months unable to find a new one. Julia said it wasn't a problem, that they would get through it together. But in his mind, every word sounded like pity. He felt less and less worthy of being with her. Gradually, he began to make excuses not to go out, avoided meetings, and finally asked for a break. Julia cried and said, "But I still love you. Isn't that enough?" His answer was silent but clear. The problem was never love. The problem was that he felt incapable. This is the point. When a man feels that he is failing in the role he believes he has to fulfill, he withdraws. Not because he has stopped loving, but because he does not want his partner to see his weaknesses. He withdraws as a way of protecting his self-esteem and, in a way, even protecting the relationship from something he believes will end up tarnishing it. And here comes the difference between men and women. Many women, when faced with difficulties, seek support, want to talk, share the burden. Many men, on the other hand, have been trained to do the opposite. When they suffer, they remain silent. When they are afraid, they hide it. When they are overwhelmed, they isolate themselves. This isolation is the first reason for withdrawal. If you've been through this, you've probably seen clear signs. He starts avoiding serious conversations, spends more time in silence, pretends that everything is fine when it clearly isn't. This behavior does not mean a lack of love, but rather a lack of emotional resources to deal with his own pain. It's as if he enters a cave. Inside that cave, he tries to reorganize his thoughts, regain his pride, and solve his problems. But while he is inside, those on the outside feel only emptiness, absence, and silence. And that silence is cruel, because it leaves room for misinterpretation. His partner may think that he no longer loves her, that there is someone else, that the love has cooled. But in most cases, none of this is true. He just doesn't want to show his wounds. It's important to remember, distancing himself due to overload doesn't mean he's giving up. It means he's trying to rebuild himself, even if it hurts those around him. And understanding this is the first step to breaking the cycle. When a man distances himself because of emotional overload, it's not love that's missing. What's missing is inner balance. He can't offer what he would like to, so he prefers to withdraw until he can regain his strength. So if you've experienced or are experiencing this situation, take a deep breath and remember, the distance may just be a reflection of the weight he's carrying. And if there is true love, that weight can be alleviated with understanding, patience, and dialogue at the right time. The first reason, as we have seen, is emotional and mental overload, but there is a second, equally powerful cause that makes a man pull away even when he loves: the fear of losing his identity. When a man feels that he is losing himself in a relationship, that he is losing his sense of freedom, that his individuality is being swallowed up by routine or expectations, he tends to retreat. And this withdrawal does not mean that he does not love. On the contrary, it often means that he needs to reconnect with himself in order to continue loving in a healthy way. From an early age, men learn to value their autonomy. The feeling of having space, of maintaining hobbies, friendships, and even moments of solitude is a fundamental part of male identity. When, in a relationship, he realizes that this is beginning to disappear, whether due to demands or a suffocating routine, his mind activates an alert. This alert translates into distancing. Consider Pedro and Laura. They met, fell in love quickly, and soon were practically inseparable. At first, this intensity seemed beautiful, almost like a fairy tale. But over time, Pedro began to feel that he no longer had a life outside the relationship. His friends complained about his absence, his hobbies were neglected, and even time alone seemed impossible. When Laura asked him about it, he would reply, "Everything's fine, I like being with you." But inside, Pedro felt he was losing himself. His love for Laura was real, but the lack of space suffocated him. Until, suddenly, he began to pull away. This is one of the greatest paradoxes. The tighter the relationship becomes, the more he feels the need to break free. And this is not because he has stopped loving her, but because human beings, and especially men, need to keep a part of themselves outside the relationship in order for the love within it to remain alive. If you've ever experienced something similar, you may have noticed the signs. He starts seeking more time alone, avoids activities as a couple that he used to love, spends hours on seemingly unimportant activities just to feel like he still controls some part of his own life. To those around him, this sounds like coldness or neglect, but in fact, it's a cry for the preservation of his own identity. The fear of losing freedom is not about rejecting your partner. It's about protecting an inner space that ensures you remain who you are. When that space is threatened, even unconsciously, you pull away. And here's the big confusion. Many women interpret this distancing as disinterest or betrayal, when in fact it's just an attempt to regain balance. It's like a bonfire. If you throw too much wood on it at once, the fire goes out due to lack of air. Love works the same way. When the relationship suffocates, even if it is full of love, the space to breathe disappears. Distancing, in this case, is a way to create that oxygen again. This type of distance often happens in long-term relationships, when routine begins to swallow both partners. But it can also happen in the beginning, when one of the partners is afraid of losing themselves too quickly. It is a natural human reaction. We need love, but we also need individuality. And when a man feels he is about to lose his body and mind react with distance. Here's something that many people don't understand. Giving space doesn't diminish love, it strengthens it. It is in the space that he realizes he misses you, that he values what he has, that he finds the motivation to continue investing in the relationship. The distance in this case is not an end, it is an adjustment. And that's why, if you notice this behavior, you shouldn't react with despair, demands, or excessive vigilance, because that only confirms his feeling of suffocation. The secret is to offer understanding and show that his space is respected. That's how he feels confident to come back, whole, ready to love even more deeply. In short, the second reason for withdrawal is not a lack of love. It is the fear of losing one's identity within the relationship. He withdraws to catch his breath, to rediscover himself, to ensure that love does not become a prison. Now you know the truth. When a man withdraws, it is almost never because he has stopped loving you. The two fundamental reasons are much deeper than that. The first is emotional overload, when he feels he can't live up to his own expectations and prefers to hide in silence rather than show his weaknesses. The second is the fear of losing his identity, when he realizes he is losing himself and needs space to rediscover himself. Do you see how these two reasons have to do with him and not with his partner? This is the key that so many people ignore. Many relationships end because women interpret withdrawal as rejection, when in fact he is just fighting an internal battle. And when this interpretation turns into demands, despair, and fights, the withdrawal grows even more, until it turns into a breakup. But when you understand that withdrawal is not a lack of love, but rather a silent request for space or balance, everything changes. You stop reacting with insecurity and start responding with clarity. You understand that the best response is not to chase desperately, but to respect his time and at the same time, take care of yourself. Think about it. How many love stories have ended too soon because no one knew how to interpret the silence? How many couples could still be together today if they had understood that distance is not the end, but a sign that something needs to be adjusted? Love does not die because someone pulls away. It dies when no one knows what to do in the face of distance. Of course, giving space does not mean accepting any kind of neglect or disrespect. There is a line between understanding and self-negation. The balance lies in recognizing when distance is the result of an internal struggle and when it is really disinterest. The difference is that in cases where there is love, the signs remain. He still shows affection, even if less. He still seeks you out, even if less frequently. He still shows in his eyes that you are important, even when he can't put it into words. And here's the final thought. The real secret is not to avoid distance, but to learn how to deal with it in the right way. If a man distances himself because he feels overwhelmed, he needs to feel that love is not a burden, but a support. If he distances himself for fear of losing his identity, he needs to feel that his space is respected and that he will not be suffocated. When these points are understood, distance does not destroy, it strengthens. Maybe you are experiencing this now, or maybe you have experienced it in the past. If so, look at this experience with different eyes. Instead of thinking, "He doesn't love me anymore," try to think, "What is going on inside him that I can't see?" This simple change in perspective can save not only the relationship but also the peace within you. Because in the end, healthy relationships are not those where no one pulls away. They are those where both learn to come back. They are those where there is space to be two whole individuals who choose to walk side by side. Withdrawal, when understood, ceases to be a threat and becomes just another natural part of the journey. And that's what I want you to take away from this video. When a man pulls away, don't rush to conclude that it's the end. Take a deep breath, observe the signs, remember the two main reasons. If there is still love, there is also a way back.